Hello survivors, welcome to MTG Specs, where the real horror is how much my back hurts and whether I'll make next month's mortgage repayment. But you're here for 13 cursed decks from Duskmourn. There's something not quite right about these 100 card piles that came back wrong and dragged themselves out of the cellar to terrorise your opponents. 1. Marina Curses. Rock up with Marina and your opponents will assume they're getting a spooky tour of the house and its many twisted rooms, but no locked doors here, just creatures getting neutered, hands being stripped, and oodles of painful gameplay decisions, courtesy of Magic's many curses. Marina is perfect for two reasons. She restocks our hand with not just new ill omens, but also enchantment creatures that support our nefarious schemes, and as a 5C commander, we can use the who's who of legendaries that support our enchantment theme. We have Drain with Ariette, who also has a life gain curse list on this channel. We also have Convoke. We have Draw, Recursion, Tutors, and Cost Reduction. The busted escape mechanic. It's a unique control and value build that pushes us over the top with token closers and lets us tap our hand or point to our Bitterheart Witch and say, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Vengeance be our name with Marina Curses. 2. Victor, Rats and Rolls. Meet Victor's inspiration, Twisted Sewer Witch. He craves multiple enchantments entering, the first two that do fill the yards, the third resurrects a creature to do Victor's bidding. Whilst Veldrain's roll, especially those that appear en masse, meet Victor's requirements handily, but also this plan needs some backup, and thankfully the house's verminious basements are filled not just with Cellar Spawn, but also rats. Rats that create rolls, rats that fill the graveyard, and rats that disrupt opponents' plans. Add in enchantments that bear the cursed text, choose a creature type, or creatures you control have, and our rats take over the board while Victor keeps them coming back for more and for gnaw. White gives us draws to go with our paws, cheap enchants to hamper opponents' ways to close the game, and additional roll cards. Be prepared to say an rats game with Victor Roll and Rats. 3. Winter, Traps and Flash. The open-endedness of Winter's Delirium leads to a deadly surprise. Artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and non-permanent spells that scream, gotcha! The instants lean into trap cards that have a reduced cost in response to an opponent furthering their plans. The artifacts are flash-laden contraptions that deal damage or sit on the board threatening it. The enchantments make Winter scarier or opposing creatures weaker, and the creatures represent all the leap out of the shadows nastiness with removal, disruption, and sudden life swings galore, or just straight up blockers out of nowhere. Any untapped mana is going to put the fear of Valgavoth in those trespassing on Winter's trapped turf. 4. Aminatou, Yuriko's Halloween costume. You know two legendary creatures who love the top of your library, Aminatou and Yuriko. Aminatou wants to see enchantments, and Yuriko wants to see a high mana value card to deal damage. Well, there's precious little ninjas in Duskmourn bar Kaito, but let's get Yuriko into her Aminatou costume she hired from the local Duskmourn store, and deal huge amounts of damage based on the horrors waiting on the top of the library. Horrors which we can engineer using top deck manipulation and tutors. Think stacking the top of your library with Overlord of the Mistmoors, Celestial Mantle, or Omniscience, and then either cheating them out with the Miracle mechanic or letting it be a nasty, upkeep surprise throat punch to the opponent's life total. And for those troublesome permanents, Theft. Miracle cost reduced Theft. This is a flexible pile with lots of decisions and a twist on the dark side for Aminatou. Speaking of which, 5. Niko, Infect and Toxic. It's very Duskmourn to see a hero twisted into a villain, so let's take everyone's favourite Azorius mirror mage, Niko, and introduce him to the multiverse big bad the Phyrexians, and use his bounce and clone theme to win the game with 10 poison counters. And what easier way to deliver those counters than building up a big board of shards by bouncing Niko, and then turning those shards into blighted agents and jawbone duelists to deal multiple matches of poison from combat damage, or abuse a creature with pseudo ninjutsu like Basilica Shepherd or Indoctrination Attendant that will trigger when they return to the battlefield at the end step to create more poison-bearing minions. The rest is classic Infect plays, proliferation for the poison counters and heavy control of the board, just turned up by the number of shards we can accrue, which can also draw us cards if needed. Boon of the Spirit Realm is an all-star in this deck. Shards entering means more blessing counters on Boon, bigger creatures, and works with Proliferate. Niko, in the name of light hope and painful poisonous death. 6. Marvin Oddities. Marvin is weird, so the deck is packed with weirdos too. Weirdos that make him significantly more dangerous as a Voltron commander. The activated abilities on offer include Indestructible, Regenerate, Flying, First Strike and Trample, and Banding if you want that headache. Marvin shares the same loophole-skirting tech of Necrotic Ooze paired with Asmodeus the Archfiend. Being able to remove the top card of your library and make a weird +X/+X counter based on that card's mana value was tempered by Phyrexian Devourer having to sack once it reaches 7 power. Marvin can just keep doing it until his power is well over 21 and is munching upon the collective populace. The rest of the deck is colourless staples and equipment to keep the Voltron hits coming, and a suite of protection. Mainly, Marvin's maniacal manoeuvres make merry mayhem. 7. The Mindskinner BURN. I played against this deck last week and was milled over 70 cards in 3 turns due to a combination of Fraying Sanity, the Mindskinner, and something you might not have had the pleasure of searing off your face with its ice-cold rays, Blue Burn. Yes, blue used to be a part of the Group Slug Punisher Club, dealing damage when players played certain spells, cast summons, for having auras attached to a creature, for a creature dying or even tapping your lands, and the Mindskinner prevents that damage and turns it into mill. Couple this with the classic pingers and some updates to mill thanks to more modern magic, and it's bye-bye library. At least it's all opponents, so they won't have to wait for their turn to watch their entire game plan, and answers get drowned by a nightmare. 8. Kona Monoliths. A tap second main phase Kona puts a permanent from your hand into play, so the question is, why don't your friends want to play Magic with you anymore? Answer, you used Kona to cheat in Monoliths, expensive artifacts which do monolithic things, like your life total not changing, repeatedly destroying things, giving Kona +10/+10, or just, well, winning the game. And how early can we do this? Well, we have a metric ton of ramp and ways to tap Kona. They're in the land base, vehicles with beneficial abilities, and other cheap artifacts that act as removal. The deck has plenty of backup if Kona can't bend like a beastie, Koldo for Forge Master, the sheer amount of mana just to cast things, and a Tyvar to bring the aggro smackdown with all our mana dorks. Kona Cabs is ready to taxi you to a win, just don't forget to rate them 5 stars. 9. Arabella, Convoke and Playmates. Scarabella wants to play, and all the creatures in her deck bring a Power 2 Playmate to join in, or can extend an invite to more Power 2 bodies so the fun and games can continue. And if Arabella gets put back on the shelf or ritually dismembered in a vague attempt to end her reign of soulless terror, we lean on those Playmates to power out Convoke spells that wipe an opponent's board and protect ours, or set up triple damage for when Arabella inexplicably returns on a slow-moving rocking chair, turns sideways and absolutely wrecks each opponent. Throw in a grafted exoskeleton to turn Arabella's damage into a one-shot, a sprinkling of goad and a Chroma's will to win with a wide board, and we have a multi-avenue win helmed by a single-minded doll who wants to play with you forever. 10. The Master of Keys. Backgrounds, sagas, horrors. There is no more true horror than when Wizards brings back a busted mechanic, into which we play with a throaty, spooky laugh. We have backgrounds and sagas that mill cards that we can use the escape mechanic with to cheat or return to play more backgrounds and sagas that further mill, or find our commander's backgrounds and auras to provide a peppy Voltron boost. Quite dangerous when you consider that as a Spookin' Chief, he can enter as quite a big boy with that X in his cost. We have a horror sub-theme. They are either contributing to the mill or helping us control the board, especially love Forgotten Creation dumping our hand to fuel escape each turn. You could easily pivot to use enchantments that grow the horrors team, much like the Rats and Rolls deck, but for me, backgrounds are much more fun with a flying commander that can continually recur them. 11. Devotion to Valgavoth. I playtest everything I build, and it is unbelievably scary how consistently and quickly you are able to cast a 9/9 flying lifelink with Ward, you are screwed, and a Dalfi Voidwalker on steroids effect. Between Crick, Jet Medallion, how easy it is to turn on Scepter of Eternal Glory, and the OP Heartless Summoning, he hits the board with surprising regularity. This deck prioritises black pips to trigger devotion effects like creating a ton of squirrels or harpies, destroying creatures, mass evasion, or the classic Gary Drain. Helldozer is seriously scary here, as is the Doomsday Excruciator, adding 9 black pips between them. A classic mill and fill strategy with the best reanimation spells backs up the brew, and really you can spin your black haunted wheels until Valgavoth gets here and takes over the board. Coming back from 9 life swings is tough, and Valgavoth is loving every single minute. 12. Norin Tremors. We tested Norin Tremors against other decks in this accursed list, and it became the glass cannon surprise of the bunch. Yes, it folds like a spine in Valgavoth's grasp, but underestimating its weird bounce to exile when blocked mechanic, and you are likely to be dead before you know it. The deck packs the classic Tremors suite of cards, and with 2 or 3 in play and a deck of low to the ground hasty creatures, the ETB damage adds up fast. The deck asks opponents to do a lot of damage. Do I take the damage or block and see 3 2-mana value creatures go to exile that will then return and re-trigger ETBs and more impact damage? The value and the little beats the deck provides just steamroll, and with a group of cards added to make damage even bigger, and cards that make hasty creatures bigger when they enter, well, who's the coward now, eh? And yes, Norin might get killed, but he only costs 1, he will be back. Nemesis Mask and Invasion Plans put in the work towards the end, when you must get creatures through, and really, this deck has taken down Valgavoth Devotion and Marina Curses. The only drawback is having to play from exile that turn, but everything is so cheap. It's such a unique take on red doing red things, but kind of Azorius in its approach. 13. The Jolly Balloon Man, Births and Deaths. 99 red balloons sailing through the summer sky, then they attack, and we all die. This jolly fellow likes it when the balloon token copies he makes go pop at the end of the turn, so we have creatures with dice triggers to gain value from the very small investment of 1 and tap from the JBM. But why just make 1 balloon when we can untap him? It's Valgavoth's Cellar coming out party, and we must have more balloons. And we love balloons with their own sack triggers also. A Selfless Spirit balloon can pop now rather than later and protect the team, which also triggers the morbid cost of Grim Reaper's Sprint for an extra combat phase, which untaps our Commander Clown. Or we could just add counters and untap creatures with Lulu. We also have a Clown card's worth of sack outlets so we can control the Circle of Life. And when you aren't ready to see those balloons burst, just end the turn with Sundial of the Infinite. If you enjoyed this humble free content today, a like and subscribe would mean the world to me. Comment below, which was your favourite deck? Next, I am ranking Duskmourn's room cards. Until then, I have been Lee, and this has been MTG Specs.